Well, Reuters is reporting that when the Fulani herdsmen that have gone around the West African sub-region, they've complained that, look, the farmers are taking all the land. And it goes beyond Nigeria into these other countries, but the complaints seem to be the same, that farmers are taking up all the land and that their ability to graze the way that they have always grazed is being adversely impacted. And that as a result of that, Islamic militants are calling them and saying, look, we're on your side, we're going to give you arms, and we're going to make sure that we fight alongside you if you fight alongside us, a kind of an alliance. Now, if that's what Reuters, for example, is reporting, do you think that, what level of impact do you think that Islamic militants are having on this trend of violence between herdsmen and farmers across the sub-region?
Recruitment of terrorists since history, if you look back at history, has always been with the vulnerable groups. So they look at those who are available and they recruit. So if they feel that this group of people are being attacked, yes, they become readily available for them to recruit. And that's why I talked about population explosion. Why is it that they are complaining that the lands are being taken? Because the transhuman is becoming a bit restricted because there's an encroachment, if you like. And then there's also issues relating to nature, taking its course. But beyond all that, let also look at our own responses. How have we been able to respond? We cannot continue to use hardcore security every time, talk about police, state police. We need to say, so why is this happening? How do we have this combination of all the issues that are being mentioned? Any of the angle to this issue is as important as the other.
We know in the case of Boko Haram, the multinational joint task force, the MNJTF, was very, very kind of essential in the fight against Boko Haram and the relative decimation of their capacity in the sub-region. Now, if they were able to collaborate on that issue, to deal with that issue, what then stops them from collaborating on this issue? Do you think that there are some other factors that may be involved?
I don't see what is stopping them. There is a framework, and the ECOWAS is a very good framework. There is an ECOWAS counter-terrorism strategy and implementation plan, which every of the ECOWAS member states is supposed to key into. So if you approach it as a community, then what it means is that we begin to develop policies and programs that addresses it at a community level. What is also surprising to me is that I feel that we can actually turn this menace into an opportunity. The states can actually turn it. Okay, let me take an example of Benue State or Nasarawa State. What stops people from providing a ranch, for example? And when you provide a ranch, do not even charge the herders for using the ranch. You can actually make money when they sell. So when they feel they don't have money, no problem. But on the point of selling one cattle, there is an amount of money to be paid to the state. So it becomes an income-generating venture, but also creates the regulatory framework that you need to also achieve. So you turn it the other way around. In that case, you have the moral leverage to be able to arrest, prosecute anybody who is outside of the ranch in your state.
So now, if it could be turned into an economic opportunity, one factors in some of the things that we've seen in terms of the politics of sentiment. We are in a very sentimental country where emotions run high on some of these issues. Now, some people have looked at the historical factors when you talk about the conquests that went down into the land of the Tiv that didn't succeed, and people thinking that this is, a case where they want to come back and take over the land. What are your thoughts about some of those notions?
Unfortunately, those narratives, as important as they may appear, they have not dealt with the issues. So do we want to get stuck on those narratives? I think that what makes a nation great is the ability to change the narrative, to be able to deal with issues without looking at how they have been bogged down by the same issue over a period of time. And I think that not only does Nigeria have the immediate need to address this issue, but they need to also provide leadership at the level of the sub-region.
This is a very important conversation, and we're going to continue in just a moment. We'll take a short break. Our viewers, please stay with us. We will be back in a moment. Welcome back to Abuja. Standing by with us, of course, is Dr. Chukwuemeka, the Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace Building in Accra. Now, The 2017 Global Terror Index report said that between 2010 and 2016, there were 3,000 deaths recorded in 4 countries across the West African sub-region due solely to a violence inflicted by Fulani herdsmen as a group. Now, I want to ask you, when you look at some of the individual efforts that have been made in the sub-region, within these countries, what do you think can be meshed together between them to come up with a coordinated strategy to eventually defeat this menace?
I think, like I said earlier on, it's important for the ECOWAS member states, especially those countries that are involved, to come together to look at lessons learned. What is working in some countries and what are the gaps that exist. And I think, for example, if you look at Ghana, I think what has worked very well for Ghana is that there is this very important collaboration between the communities and the police. In fact, 2 weeks ago, Ghana just launched its police transformation agenda. And if you look at the components of that transformation agenda, and the civil society and the wider community, I think that has worked very well. If you go to a country like Senegal, it's also important to know why they are having less of the herders conflict. And if you look at Ghana, for example, it is the only country that is involved in this herders clash that is not also exposed to violent extremism. At least they have not recorded any major issue to that extent. Burkina also is involved. Mali is involved. So it's important that we look at some of these countries and we sit together as a community and look at what is working for each of the countries. Otherwise, if we continue to solve it as a nation, and yet there is a movement of the nomads from all parts of West Africa, then we cannot solve the problem. Because what happens also is that they get into some kind of a union, and something that affects one here also affects the rest of them. So they have combined effort in addressing the issue.
You know, I wish we had more time to discuss this issue, Dr. Eze, but unfortunately that's where we have to leave it. With us has been Dr. Chukwuemeka Eze, the Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace Building in Accra. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure, Louis.
And with that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.